Welcome to the All Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Steven, and I'm joined, as always, by producer and co-host Chris Burrito. Episode number 180 of the All Hoops podcast today will feature the very 500 New York Knicks, the beam-lighting Sacramento Kings, and Ben Simmons playing well for his fourth straight game. Before we get to all that, Chris, my friend, how are you?
Hey, buddy. Happy to be here. Another episode of the All Hoops podcast. You know, our Knicks really surprised us on this West Coast trip. They went 3-2. Jalen Brunson looks like an all-star. But I think the most important thing for us to talk about is light the beam.
Yeah, I mean, all right, I'll let you pick. You want to start with the Knicks? You want to start with the Kings?
No, I feel like we need to talk about the Kings. I mean, right now they look like I can't believe I'm saying this, but like one of the best teams in the West. And it's all because of De'Aaron Fox, and well, mostly because of him. And we need to give the Kings props because we all thought they'd be like, okay, maybe they'd be a borderline play-in team or a playoff team. And right now they are playing more so than that. We have Kevin Durant comparing Herder to the Splash Brothers, and like this is like crazy land. But I have to say the whole light the beam thing has been one of the coolest fan basketball things I've ever seen. I think, like, imagine lighting the beam like after
Well, are they a playoff team to you, Chris?
They are. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say they're not. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news here with this, but I just don't think it's sustainable. So far, the offensive numbers basically don't just say they're the best offense in the West. It says they're the best offense ever. And I just don't find that really sustainable. This is not a team that's really going to win with defense. De'Aaron Fox has definitely taken a leap. He's one of my guys. I love him a lot, but is he going to go from a low 40 shooter to 55% from the floor? I don't know about that. Kevin Herter shooting 50% from three. I'm not sure about that either. Sabonis has looked awesome, 17, 11, and 6 on good shooting. He's at 58%. So, those are your kind of big three. And, they've all been spectacular. They all look, like potential all-stars at this point. And, when was the last time the Kings had an all-star, let alone 2 or 3? So it's been a great start for them. If you told me before the season the Kings are going to make a leap, I would have said, okay, well, that must mean Keegan Murray, who lit up the Summer League, has taken a leap to become a Rookie of the Year candidate. And he's been one of the worst rookies in the league. So it's really kind of fascinating how they've done this. You got to give De'Aaron Fox a ton of credit. You got to give Sacramento management a ton of credit. You got to give Mike Brown, the head coach, a ton of credit. And it's been fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think not a lot of things have changed with the Kings roster wise, right? And I think we probably need to put Mike Brown in consideration for head coach of the year.
Yeah.
Which is another thing. That team just needed veteran leadership in the biggest way from someone who was an adult in the room. Mike Brown is that. And it could also be just De'Aaron Fox's growth as a player. And so far, all these things are aligning together. And they finally have a team that's competent, that makes sense. Past years they had 3 point guards. And they seem to be, both the Pacers and the Kings seem to be moving on nicely after that trade. The Pacers, I believe, have won 6 or 7 in a row. But it's always great when the Kings are good in the league. So I'm happy for them. I also want to talk about another team that kind of surprised me on this West Coast trip. The Knicks. The Knicks are 3-2. They had an impressive victory over OKC. They beat a Jokic-less Nuggets, and they beat the Utah Jazz at the first leg of their trip. What are your main takeaways from this trip, and do you consider do you consider Tibbs to be in a good place right now?
I view them as they beat the teams they're supposed to beat for the most part, and they lose to the teams they're supposed to lose to for the most part. They're a 500 team. And my concern is just where are they going? And we've heard talk about Immanuel Quickley potentially being on the trade block, Derrick Rose being on the trade block. And the question is, like, where are they going? What are they trying to do here? And it continues just to be They're trying to be as competitive as they can while, stockpiling assets for a star. And you're getting to the point with Quickley, with Toppin, where they're not going to be cheap much longer. And their value to the Knicks might be higher in a trade for a star if you flip Quickley for a late lottery pick, if you flip Toppin for a future first. And yes, I understand the strategy, but to me, Chris, it just means just more mediocrity. You're just kind of waiting and hoping that other players around the league are going to just bail your franchise out, which hasn't happened before.
Yeah,
We've tried this before.
and like, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander doesn't want to leave OKC.
Right.
Booker's, I don't think he's leaving the Suns anytime soon.
You're the number one record in the West, Phoenix.
I just don't know who they're even thinking about, and like, what is this all for? I mean, these things tend to happen.
You know who I think it could be all for, and I think it would be the end of the Knicks of the 2020s?
Embiid.
I think it could be Towns. He clearly doesn't fit with Gobert. They're going to get nothing for Gobert, so they're going to say, let's try Towns. Towns has the CAA connection. I could see it where you're trading Randall and a bunch of picks, and Towns is just really just not much better, and you're still a 500 team. And the Thibodeau Towns thing with a disaster, I could see that from here. And I just think the star hunting thing to me isn't the way to go. I think you want to build through the draft. I want to develop young players, and that's just never been their priority in in my 15 years of watching this team.
It's never been the main priority. It's option B or it's option C, while option A is always in pursuit. But it's just tough when you're in the New York market. Like, you can't really get away with that anywhere else. Like, nobody cares about the Nets. Nobody cares about the Clippers. And like, I feel like part of the reason why the Lakers are so adamant against, whatever they're doing is because of that. They recognize that, being relevant and being mediocre is better than not being good at all. I mean, even though the Lakers aren't playing that well either.
I just don't agree with that. I just think I'd rather be terrible than I'd rather be this.
I know where you stand on it. I'm just saying, like, the Knicks clearly don't feel that way.
I know, but this has been the 9th worst team in the league for 8 of the last 10 years, it feels like. And where has it gotten them? It's a mediocre roster.
I mean, we can say the same thing about many teams that don't make the finals or
forget the finals, though. This is not a team to me that can contend for a second round, and this is not a team to me that can contend for ping pong balls. And if you can't realistically tell me you can be in that position within the next year, either of those spots, you're kind of going nowhere.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say a lot of teams say that. I think there's very few teams that are stuck in the middle like that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you're not wrong about the strategy in terms of in a practical way. I just think that the Knicks are never going to be that team that like tanks or goes for the youth movement for a long time.
I just don't get why. It doesn't make sense to me.
I mean,
we've been talking about this now, 6 seasons of this show?
But that's exactly it. Like, unless you get someone who is patient in terms of ownership, James Dolan isn't going anywhere. It's not going to happen. In a really sad way, this is as good as it gets.
It's just, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to be ownership change. I just don't get it, where they have a huge decision to make on top, and they have a huge decision to make on Quickley, Reddish, Grimes. Grimes obviously a year after these guys,
but I'm kind of tired of like painting this as like a doom and gloom thing. Like, and like, I know it's not great, but like, there are some positives to be made right now. And like,
sure,
it's still early in the season.
Jalen Brunson looks like an all-star.
Brunson looks like an all-star. Toppin has a 3-point game, and Right now IQ hasn't gone anywhere. Like I get there are reports right now about trading him. Doesn't make much sense to us. Um, and like let's say RJ gets his shooting streak back. He's really streaky. Like I remember parts of last season where he went through the same thing at the beginning of the season. He found his stroke. So I'm looking at a universe where these things sort of are back into place where they should be. Maybe we rack up some more wins, and then maybe we can make more of noise. But like, you know, I think right now I'm not saying that the Knicks are going to make deep playoff run. I don't know that yet, but let's just see what happens.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get what you're saying. They're obviously in a better position with Jalen Brunson leading the offense than anybody they've had in the last decade. But
For
at the
sure.
same time, I want a concrete plan. I want to be able to say, okay, in 2027, there's a legit chance the Knicks will have a chance to go to the second round.
I mean, listen, I think right now Knicks management is trying to shoot 10,000 balls to the wall and seeing what happens. I don't think I don't even think they have anybody in mind except maybe Towns, which is a great guess. But like they're a 500 team. Like
Yeah,
that's what they were supposed to be. Right now, it's like they're not 3-20. Like, I mean, you'd probably prefer them to be 3-20, but
I would.
um, they're
But that's
500.
all I'm saying. That's all I'm getting at.
No,
It
I
just
hear you. I hear you.
yeah. But anyway, yes, Jalen Brunson's been good. I think Barrett will be better. And let's just move on from there to somebody else who's playing a lot better. Ben Simmons, Chris, after looking like he was looking just rusty and maybe potentially out of the league, he's averaging about 15, 8, and 7 on 78% shooting uh, over his last 4 games. Before that, 5, 6, and 6, and not shooting the ball well on 27 minutes per game. He's really only shooting in the paint, which we knew about, but it seems like the confidence is starting to come back. He's starting to get a little bit of his burst back. And Chris, which is the real Ben Simmons?
I think it's the Ben Simmons that we're seeing lately. I mean, we have to give people a chance to like get acclimated. Like, I think I don't know if we're gonna see the star version of him, but like he's still a young player. Like we're acting as if this is Carmelo Anthony in his 20th year in the league. He's still a young guy, and like um I'm optimistic that he'll be better. I mean, listen, he's a Brooklyn Net. I'm not rooting for him, but I think we collective um were probably too quick to say that he was never going to be back to his old shape. The people were frustrated, obviously, I get that, but he's still a young player.
Yeah, I mean, he looked really bad, but when you think about it, it does seem like a huge overreaction to say he might be coming out of the league. He might not be a starting player anymore after 9 games when he didn't play last year. So now he's starting to look like himself. He's starting to fit into this offense. And I'm not sure if they're really going to go anywhere the Nets, but at least he's being a positive contributor. He looks like he's worthy of his salary, which is a huge, thing for him. And you said you're not rooting for him. I am rooting for him. I think he's a genuinely good dude. I got him on the fantasy team,
Well,
obviously, so I
that's
can
why
see
you're
his
rooting for him.
contributions. And I to hear have the media and the NBA talk be how he's just not he doesn't want to play. Is he mentally fit to play? It's so much better to just have him back on the court contributing, whether he's averaging 30 points a game or 15, 8, and 8. It's still really good to see him back on the court because he's a really quality player.
Well, yeah, and it's also important for him not to feel prisoner of
Yeah.
other people's perceptions of him. Like he, sure, he was a star player, and who knows if he'll get back to that position, but he's still a contributor. And like I think you work from there, and then you get better, and then you get comfortable, and then there's a different story. Um,
Still
but
just 26 years old.
26 years old, 4 years younger than we are.
Yeah. On that note, let's get to our final thoughts right after this. All right, Chris, final thoughts time here. My guy, Cade Cunningham, feared to have a stress fracture in his left shin. He's out indefinitely as the team and him decide on surgery. That surgery would be season ending. It seems like he is out for the year anyway. And the Pistons are 4-15 on the year. They're basically unwatchable without him when I thought they could sneakily sneak into that play in. It's upsetting, Chris. It's too bad because he was a really good young player off to a good start after not shooting the ball well in the first half of the year last year. But what do you think about this?
I'm sad for him because he's also on my fantasy team, but also sad for him because this could have been a good year for him and the other young players on the team to really gel and bond the way that like many other young teams have. But it kind of is what it is, and we hope that he gets better soon. And you know, at least he's young. He's gonna recover well. He'll be back. He'll be stronger, and it'll be a better year for him next year.
Obviously, for the team, they might be better off just losing games, and we'll see. End of the year, if they wind up being the ones to get one of these top two studs in the draft, maybe they say, "Hey, we are better off with this." But development wise, having Cade miss his second year is just terrible. And then also having a guy like Jaden Ivey, who's more of a combo guard, he's a guy who probably needs to learn how to play off the ball with Cade Cunningham. That's not really going to happen this year now. And Ivy's been okay. He's averaging 16, 4 and 4 and okay shooting. But I think having Cade there would have help them grow as a duo going forward. And it's going to be more of a Sexton Garland situation where one was hurt, the other takes over, then the other one's hurt and he takes over. And I kind of was hoping both of them would kind of learn how to play together this year to make a run next year. And now that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, goes to show you, even if you tank, you can't plan these things out. So,
No, you cannot. All right. Well, speaking of teams that probably should tank, but they can't because they don't have their draft picks, Anthony Davis, Chris, he's back. He's carrying the Lakers with LeBron out.
I love his I mean, I don't want to say reemergence, but I'm happy for him also because he'd been dealing with a lot of injuries, and a lot of people questioning whether he should have been named in the top seven. Was it top 50 or top 75?
75.
75 players, and you know, it's good to see him back, and like I can't wait for LeBron to also be back. I'm happy for him, and the Lakers
Yeah.
are winning, which people will talk less about that for now.
Yeah, I mean they're still 5-11, but they're not the worst in the league anymore. That's the Houston Rockets. Chris, is there anything else you have before we wrap up the show?
No, just want to wish all our listeners and watchers happy Thanksgiving, and to you too, Stevie.
Thank you, buddy. I'm looking forward to seeing you too. I am thankful for this show. I am thankful for you keep putting a positive spin on the 9-9 Knicks, and we will talk to you all very soon.
All right, bye everyone.